DCarsonCPA, MFC on the lines. We break out the whiteboards. We talk about different concepts in the economy and financials where our skills can help. Today we're going to talk about the nonprofit lines. This is a broad line about nonprofits and the different operating areas and needs of nonprofits. But it's a subject that's certainly deep and wide. There's lots to cover in this line, and the needs where financials can help societal needs for nonprofits in their specific role. I'm going to cover some broad points here. This certainly won't be everything, but it'll be some good and interesting points about start points to help. And we'll put out other points in the line. We certainly already have lines in DCarsonCPA on nonprofits and web, where you can connect with our daily research lines about the funding lines, about the opportunity lines, the need for controls, for governance, for the opportunity to help organizations work with economic resources to meet wants and needs in society that they're basically put together to help support. If you think about the Global 360, this is about individuals and families in the economy working with pooled resources, thinking about different needs that need to be supported. Could be at the local, could be at the regional, could be at the state, multi-state, national, or even the global level. A nonprofit is an entity established in a line where government established an opportunity for nonprofits to exist as tax-free entities in the way that we're going to talk about them now, or potentially these newer lines of dual-purpose entities. These entities are established with a specific function to work with resources, designated resources. Could be grants, could be funding, could be the resources of donors, could be the resources of fundraising for their specific needs and purposes in the economy and financials. Now, nonprofits in the broad sense that we'll cover here, as well as the dual benefit entities or organizations which are now available in some states. I believe in New York State we now have dual benefit entities which can be part for profit, part nonprofit. It's a level of complexity, and it interfaces with both the state and the federal line. So you've got elements of nonprofits that are organizations that are established at the state level but also need clearance on the federal level to actually be a nonprofit and have a 501c status across the lines of the different 501c potentials. You need to have an approved status from the IRS. So that's kind of a start point, is to put together a document which talks about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it to get appropriate approval from the IRS to be a nonprofit, or otherwise you will not have those tax benefits, and people that make donations will not be able to make tax-deductible benefits. So that becomes an important line in the way that our society works with nonprofits. With nonprofits, you have a purpose, some need and community that you're there to support, a mission which can be similar to the purpose, but it's probably more detailed about how you're going to go about achieving that purpose, because your purpose could be to help in delivery of health services to the underserved, of support of U.S. history, of support of education, of support of the arts, sports, or any other thing. And then you need to have a more detailed mission about how you're going to do that, what's the formation of your structure, what will be the ways that you do and don't do that. So you'll have some articles of incorporation which will embrace your mission, talk about who you're going to be, how in general you're going to do that, and then you'll set up your structures. Within your entity, you're dealing with the economics, you're dealing with financials, you're dealing with controls, you're dealing with governance, you're dealing with ethics and compliance, because there's an even greater responsibility in nonprofits. You're dealing with funds that have a high degree of a designated point to a purpose and community. So there's responsibility certainly on grant funding. Donations may be made as specific donations to a specific cause, or they may be general donations to an organization. Those specific distinctions would mean different channels in which way the resources could be used for an organization in pertinence to its specific mission in the community. Now, this is a broad run-through. Certainly there won't be enough time in the 5.5 minutes I have slated here to cover this, but it will introduce broad lines, and then you should pick up the phone and call us. You should check out the DCarsonCPA lines and nonprofits and our daily reporters on the sector, and you'll understand that we certainly have many skills to map in. The fundamental skills of working with financials, process engineering, and the CFO advisory line. And what I meant to say when I said financials was also technology. That's the missing piece there. So it's technology, financials, and process engineering for efficiency across organizations. Those three core skills, which are all about the DCarsonCPA MFC lines, are also mapped to the global research of DCarsonCPA. And that's a pretty significant and helpful thing if you're working with health, if you're working with education, you're working with communications, you're working with communities, you're working with sports, history, learning, feeding people, helping the homeless, helping the underserved in communities. We work with lines of integrated research, broad societal and financial research, which is mapped in, and we've got strong strategies to use that to help nonprofits grow. And we're looking for a few betas to map in, help you out on the advisory lines, and to map in the knowledge and pathways. Now, a big part of being in a nonprofit is a cycle of, you're working with the resources you have, working with personnel, volunteers, events and funding, stakeholders, and there's certainly a line of outreach and awareness, and we've set up lines that can help in outreach awareness, specifically where nonprofits are there for services, because what happens in society, we set up these nonprofits, they work with industry, government, nonprofit, and individual family lines as well as industry lines to help deliver services to the community, but they have a huge need to let the community know they're there. So certainly you always find that outreach and awareness, which is part of the communication cycle we support on, is a part of the relevant lines in addition to helping boards with financials and other things. So I'm Dean Carson. These are broad lines of nonprofits. They're to let you know we can help.